Working on it, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mitchell.
Beverly, what do you need from us tonight, please?
A motion to send this to the city attorney for an ordinance.
You want to tackle it?
You do it.
Mr. Weaver.
I'd really like to see what Lowell puts in there, but you're leaving it pretty open-ended if you do it the way that planning has said here, because you're not defining when it is not feasible. You could put a dollar figure, but the overhead is not going to cost the landowner anything, so it couldn't be a percentage base. You're going to have to come up with something to define who decides when it's too expensive to bury that trench through somebody's bluff to get to the back of their property or the front of their property.
I'd say that we would disqualify any rock cutting, any trenching, rock trenching or cutting.
How about serious rock cutting?
It doesn't matter, it's just any. Which would, I think, perhaps satisfy that issue. That's the main issue is rocks, not utilities or anything.
Ordinance from Lowell, because theirs said something just like this.
Lowell's open plain. Unfortunately, the historic district pretty well lays on a bluff around here if you get down very deep. If you don't define that, then everybody's going to be here in front of this council asking every time they build anything.
Ms. Schneider.
If we're gonna use rocks as a definition, we really are going to have to be a little more detailed. The city made me replace a sewer line on my private property, and it took the guys a full day of pickaxing rock to get it out of the way for this new line, and I had no options. So we need to kind of define rock situation. A little bit of pickaxing is no big deal. Stuff like what they had to do on my property, good Lord, that was like $1,500 of rock picking.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion, move this topic on. I would like to recommend the chair of planning meet with the city attorney and develop a draft ordinance based on the discussion at this table tonight.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Beverly.
Play some ping pong.
We need a second.
Yes. Sorry.
I was quick on the draw.
All right. That moves us to number 3, which is signatories on city checks.
Motion to discuss.
Second. Okay. Now, I'd like to ask Mr. Weaver to start with this. Is in your determination, is this an administrative or a legislative issue on the check signatures? Just so I'll know, because it was never defined before.
When this was addressed before, I don't think that the executive at the time, and I won't speak for exactly their motivation, but they didn't want to push it, but I think it is an executive function of who signs. I mean, there are certain people that the municipal league has, and case law in other jurisdictions would dictate are probably not the best people in the world to have signed. But legitimately, only after there's a problem is it really a legislative matter. If there's been misfeasance or money spent the wrong way, this council has to deal with that. But who signs a check is usually dictated by the executive.
Okay.
But we delete this topic, or get rid of this topic.
Is everybody good with this? I want to make sure we're all.
So he
page.
just sits there and says so and so and so and so, and that's it.
Is everybody good with that? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
I'll second his motion.
Okay. No, sir. You
To
don't.
to get rid
All
of
right, thank
okay.
you. Brings us to number 4, council members on commissions.
Motion to discuss.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Floor is open.
Brought this up because there seemed to be some interest potentially among council members here also having the opportunity to sit on commissions. And I was provided something in the planning last time that said no, and then there's been other discussions. So I'm totally lost, and I'm going to ask the question of the city attorney besides the CAPC, can any of the sitting council members also sit as a commissioner on any of the other commissions that are currently listed for this city?
Potentially, members of this board can sit on other commissions. Certain of our commissions have, in particular, I know the planning has a restriction that says that cannot occur at this time. That's a city ordinance, it's not a state law. State law would allow it if you change the city ordinance. It's been advised in a lot of court opinions that city council members really shouldn't sit on other boards if the decisions of those boards are going to come for appeal purposes to the city council. Planning often, not often, but their decisions can be reviewed. Certain of the others, some of their decisions can be reviewed at this table. And if you mix the two boards, you create problems when those appeals do occur. Given the fact that we can't keep our boards full, though, it may be something that the council wants to consider allowing, but you would have to do it, change our ordinance at least for planning.
Okay.
Any further? Ms. Schneider?
If they sat on both city council and, say, planning commission, would they not recuse themselves at city council if it was an appeal from a planning decision?
You could make that part of the requirement, but right now, recusal is a personal decision, and you would not be required to recuse.
So we could actually change the ordinance to allow, but we could also put in that stipulation.
If you did that, though, then when appeals come, you would be limiting the number of people that sit at this table who could vote, where you need 4 votes for passage. Mm-hmm. If you put 2 members of your body on there, then it would have to be unanimous among the 4 you left with the ability to vote if you recuse the 2 that sat on both boards.
Can we restrict the council sitting on any commission to 1 council member per type of commission?
You potentially could, but you still run the problem. You could always have 1 member of the council missing. You're restricting the review. And a court, I think, would potentially take a dim view of you restricting the view. So you would probably be better off to let the person, if they felt comfortable, deciding at both levels.
Well,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, go ahead.
Is there such a thing? Okay, the problem seemed to be with planning is that sometimes they just don't have a quorum. They just can't go forward because we can't get enough people to serve. In the interests of giving them a quorum, is there such a thing as having a council member serve an interim appointment until somebody comes forward who volunteers for planning commission, and this interim appointment can be replaced by a volunteer? In other words, it's not a permanent appointment, it's just until. Is there a legal term for that, even what I'm trying to say here?
I suppose you could adopt that strategy, but you probably would have a chilling effect on people coming forward if they knew somebody else was already there from the council.
Okay.
Now, another possibility would be to change the makeup of some of the boards in number and either reduce the number that it takes to make a quorum thereby by reducing the whole number of the committee or the commission.
Mr. DeVito.
This is only the 3rd meeting of this council, and I would urge caution that we don't complicate an already complicated system beyond what it is already. We can make a concerted effort to try and find people to serve on commissions. I really am not in favor of putting counselors on commissions just for the legal ramifications and the necessity or the perception that you should be recusing yourself If council wants to act as liaisons to commissions, I'm all in favor of that. But as a structure, if we have to change structure and pass ordinances in order to do something that might rectify itself in a matter of weeks, I would urge patience.
Mr. Schneider?
When this was first being brought up and I was made aware of it, the first thing that came to mind for me was several years ago when the city council would not approve anybody to sit on planning, to the point they never had a quorum, they could never do anything, and the realtors in this town had to band together to demand of council action because they couldn't sell, they couldn't do literally anything that had to do with real estate because we didn't have a planning commission. That was a really, really hard, bad time. And for all of our realtors to get together in one room and agree on something was like our town doing it, you know? I mean, it was rough. I'm very concerned about that. I also want it made very clear, I know my name has been bandied about. I have yet to be approached to see if I would be willing to go back on. No one has officially approached me. I'm concerned that there is not going to be a quorum later this month or next month. Jim Morris goes on vacation. We have got to do something. I like the idea of an interim council member. If there's, until we can get volunteers, if somebody has the authority to sit there for a couple weeks, a couple months, I don't know that anybody would have a problem throwing someone on council off. But we've got to do something. When this whole city gets brought to a standstill, like it was previously, because there's not a quorum, we've got major problems. Something has to be done, and I don't care if it's temporary or whatever. We've got to get people on the Planning Commission. We've got to.
Mr. Purkeypile?
I think I agree with Mr. DeVito. I don't think we need to be, I think liaisons are a good idea, but I think we definitely don't need to be changing ordinance, because that could be changed by the next council. And I would much rather see, I mean, right now we're 3 meetings into this particular council. We have 2 years. It'd be nice, you know, to actually go out and actually, you know, go out and talk to people and say, listen, we got a great council. Come on in. Let's, you know, everything's moving pretty smoothly here. Would you like to be on the planning commission or whatever commission? You know, a recruitment effort, I think, is what I'm saying, prior to doing anything premature.
Mr. Mitchell?
I don't disagree with that, but I'd just like to point out that time is of the essence. If Jim leaves and they have no majority vote, they don't have those 4 people there to pass anything, we could potentially be delaying. So if we're going to recruit, let's get on and let's get recruiting, and let's get the word out there, and let's solicit, and let's get some people. It's pretty bad when you look at this thing and you have people with expired terms that haven't even bothered to put in their applications yet to come back. Folks, planning is in trouble. So let's just quit bureaucratically playing with it and do something. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I don't think we need to point the fingers at those folks because they stayed on.
Well,
So let's don't make them feel bad.
No, but there's no application, Chady.
Okay, let me ask this. I mean, you're involved in real estate. Did we see a big problem with real estate when this point in time that we're talking about?
The only problems that ever come up are conditional use permits.
Okay. So it's a conditional use permit, the cups that are
There.
That's the only thing that's any kind of a problem that I can recall historically or
Permit to sell, to build, to change, to do all this stuff. You're saying it's just permits.
I don't
That's what
remember
planning
anything
does.
that has been a problem due to a shortage of membership. I mean, I've sat on there, I've been there. I'm not saying that it's a big problem. It is a big problem, but you know,
I'll tell you the room and the
people
date where they
people
met.
are going to have to, you know, they see what we do here as a city council, and hopefully it'll inspire enough where people will step up to the plate, because we're trying to proceed with this city and all of us here to try and get things going in the right direction, you know, with some union, so you know, hopefully they'll belly up. But I think the populace has to come forward.
Mr. Mitchell,
I
you had your hand
agree.
up. Okay.
No.
Any further discussion on it? Yes, ma'am.
Everyone, when is Jim going on vacation? It's either, I think it's the end of February and it's for like 3 weeks or something. Would it be a hardship for planning at this point to, if you have to, cancel a meeting while he's gone until we can get volunteers over there? Okay.
Any further? Okay. Any action will be taken by the council? Just kind of let it ride, try the recruitment thing? Okay. So it is. Moves us to number 5, discussion of part-time versus full-time mayor.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
Floor is open.
James.
Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
I see that we have a very nice ordinance regarding mayor summary, which was very beneficial. I want to thank the creator of that list very much for giving some history here. It's when I asked to have this topic on here, I did it after having attended Municipal League and having lived in the city for 4 years. It's my understanding there have been 2 attempts in the past, one since I have been here and one prior to that, in which the discussion of a new form of municipal government was brought before the people, and that being a city administrator. And it was very clear by the votes that the citizens were not in favor of a city administrator form of government. At Municipal League, I learned very clearly that the city government very clearly mimics a lot the federal government with an executive branch, a legislative, and a judicial. The executive being the mayor with the power to veto, etc. Legislative being the city commissioners, and the judicial obviously would be our city attorney. It is also, since I have been here in the 4 years, it became evident that the prior mayor spent a lot of time in the office doing the work of an executive. So I guess the question I posed at this point or brought up is, isn't it about time that the city of Eureka Springs have a full-time executive doing the job for this city and all that it encompasses? It is obvious that we can't, because it's an elected position, have qualifications applied to that. We obviously have to allow the electorate to pick from the mayoral candidates. So we can't say, it has to have a certain educational level or a certain experience. But if you look at this last election in which the citizens voted very strongly with their feelings about qualifications and the ability to be civil and other issues, it seems to me that it's time to have the discussion that this city deserves a full-time executive in the role of the mayor. Passed it to you.
Mr. Rubio.
Oh, in my knowledge, we've always had a full-time mayor. We just don't pay him.
Well, then we need to fix that.
Mr. Schneider.
Okay, several years ago, I brought up a suggestion that you thought would be discriminatory, and I highly disagreed. I don't know if you've looked into it since. If we offer a part-time mayor salary and a full-time mayor's salary, and whoever gets elected, if they are there 30-plus hours a week, that makes them full-time. If it's less, whatever amount we put, if it's less than that, they're part-time and they would be paid accordingly. Is this legal?
I don't think you can do that.
Why?
Well, I'll give you an example that may be kind of close to your heart since you're a former military person. The city of Rogers a few years ago had our current congressman, Mr. Womack, as the mayor. Mr. Womack was deployed at least twice and I think 3 times to the Middle East. But he continued to serve as full-time mayor while he was out of the country at periods of 3 to 4 months. And I believe he was paid his full salary while he was gone. Because...
Wouldn't that just entail having a variance or a stipulation for that kind of a situation?
If the mayor can handle the job in a 20-hour period, why do you make him sit in the chair for an extra 10 hours so he can get an extra $500 or whatever the pay difference may be?
We ask?
You are, well, this mayor it wouldn't affect this term.
Right.
It might be the next term. But if you gave them the option, how are you going to, one, it would become an administrative nightmare of you're going to put the mayor with a time clock and make him punch in and out. And
Well, you can tell the difference between full-time and part-time. Mayor who has, like, say, a shop in town and runs in on the lunch hour to sign some stuff, that's part-time.
no.
But I mean, but this I'm saying, is it possible, is it legal to offer full versus part-time?
I don't think it is, no.
Why would anybody want to be part-time if they could have full-time salary? That doesn't make any sense.
Let's do the meeting.
I'm just saying it backwards.
No, I'm not.
Excuse me. I think the effort, albeit sincere, is misplaced. The motive behind what we should be discussing is to constantly draw qualified people to the position of mayor. If you are only going to pay the mayor $18,000, you're not going to get somebody that may be qualified that finds it necessary to have another job in order to make ends meet. So you limit your pool considerably. So when you pay a mayor a full-time salary, you in essence have expanded the pool of candidates you have for mayor. There may be really qualified people that just can't afford to be mayor of Eureka Springs, and that's a detriment that we need to address. When I look at some of these cities and what they pay their mayors, and I've lived in Arkansas quite a few years, I've never heard of some of these cities that are paying $38,000 and $44,000 for mayors. We have a unique community here. We have a city that becomes 5 times larger on any weekend with attendant problems due to the makeup of the businesses we have here. We have, a wide mix of businesses. So I think our focus needs to be on setting a salary for the mayor that will continue to draw. We can't exist on the good graces of people like Morris, who's retired from one job and is taken on this job at a paltry salary. I mean, we have to put a salary that will continue to draw qualified people to the position.
Mr. Purkeypile.
If we did vote on something like this, or we had a motion change the salary, it would or would not apply to this current administration.
You could apply a salary change. You could not apply a duty change. You could not increase his workload or decrease his workload without his permission. But
Well,
you can change elected officials' salaries during their term.
Well,
You could not decrease his salary.
when he was elected, our current mayor was elected, I didn't read anything that said, this is a part-time gig and, you can't put any more than, we assumed you were going to put half-time in here or something. I didn't see any of that in there in the verbiage. So all we're doing is just, if we did anything, we'd just be increasing the current salary that's offered to the mayor, which would be effective as soon as it goes into effect. And for any other mayor.
It would be for the next election, wouldn't it? I don't think you can.
No, you can raise the clerk, you can raise the mayor, you can raise the city attorney. In fact, there's even a pretty good possibility you could raise your own salary.
Son of a gun.
Yeah, let's jump on that
You're out.
bandwagon.
We're in.
Mr. Schneider, you get your hand up.
Yours is more difficult than any of the other elected,
Yes.
Okay,
but it's not completely out of the realm.
Okay, first
Just
I
go away
would
from that.
I would always want to steer clear of making a salary change effective during the reign of anybody that we were doing this for, simply because they're the ones that are going to catch all the flack. Behind the scenes, you manipulated. Yeah, we don't need that. I would always want to do it for the new one. My concern on just raising the salary, hoping that that will give us more qualified people, is I have the opposite fear. We would get a whole bunch of people who say, I can sign a couple checks, I can cut a couple ribbons. That worries me.
Mr. DeVito.
You shouldn't be worried, because it will be the people who decide who that person is.
well,
Mr. Schneider. Ms. Zeller, go ahead.
the
sir.
question kind of is out there, and nobody's asking, how much time does it take to be mayor?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about
We,
here?
we stay pretty busy down here. I mean, there's always something to do. Granted, there may be some slack times, but
More than makeup.
tomorrow night we're supposed to get some nasty weather.
And do you have to go to a lot of meetings and sit on a lot of boards and commissions and things?
I do.
Okay.
I don't have to, but I do.
Yeah, but that takes extra time.
Sure. It depends how much time the person that's in the job wants to devote to it, to the community. And
But it's feasible that it's a full-time job.
it could very well be a full-time job. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, that goes. We've had some mayors that have approached it a lot more casually than that. I mean, like showing up at 11 and going home at 1, but
I can't say I do that. Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. DeVito was correctly on. If we want to set the mayor as the executive of this town, and we want the mayor to be compensated appropriately to go to commissions, go to meetings, go out and solicit business and to represent this city, we owe it to ourselves to compensate that person adequately to do that job. And it is an insult to be paying $18,000 a year for the mayor of this city.
Mr. Purkeypile.
Well, the question arises, city clerk is a full-time position, she's paid a full-time salary. The mayor, I would say, the last two mayors that we've had, those have been full-time positions. I would say they would be. I don't know, I don't come down here and check in, but all the time, just occasionally. But
We appreciate that, too.
the question is, what? We don't have any stipulations for the city clerk that says you must be here. It doesn't. We didn't have anything in writing that said you had to be here 40 hours a week. It's assumed. When I worked for anybody, it was assumed that you were a full-time person. That meant 40 hours minimum. So, if we say this is a full-time position, then current mayor and any other mayor following up, we would assume and we would insist that they be full-time.
How do you insist?
Well, I guess that's a good point. How do you enforce that? I don't know.
Mr. DeVito?
You enforce it every time you have an election. And when you pay such a small salary, there's an implied stipulation that we only want you to work a little bit. This really isn't a full-time job, and you really shouldn't approach it as such. This is something you do in your spare time. And I agree with Mr. Mitchell. It's an insult to pay $18,000 for the mayor of Eureka Springs.
Any further?
I guess we're ready for it.
I feel a
Let's
motion
just-
coming on.
Just move on here. Let's get going. I make the motion that we increase the mayoral salary effective March 1st of 2013 to $36,000 a year.
Do a second?
You're going to need to do that by ordinance. It's going to take longer than March 1st.
And talk to the finance director.
I withdraw that motion. I'll make a new one. I make a motion that we ask the city attorney to draft an ordinance increasing the mayor's salary effective March 1st to $36,000 a year.
Is there a second to the motion to have Mr. Weaver draw up the ordinance?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Mr. Schneider?
Anybody have any idea where we're going to find $18,000 without having the finance director in here? No offense.
No, take it. Did you?
Well, I was kind of getting toward that position that we've already set the budget. This should have been anticipated in the budget, so I can't embrace the March 1st date. At the very least, it would be March 1st next year. I just can't. I can't. After y'all just passed the budget, suddenly drop this.
Mr. Mitchell?
I think I just looked at the budget that was put online for us, and it's shown a consistent increase in revenue that certainly justifies $18,000 a year. I don't think the city is going to go broke over that amount of money.
Mr. Purkeypile, you had your hand up next.
Well, I don't think we'll have anything done before March 1st, ordinance or not. But it may be, and I agree with Mr. Mitchell that we probably have more funds that are available according to this budget. We're in the green, or the black, I should say. But I kind of agree with what Mr. DeVito said, and that is, do we need to balance that with this current budget? Because there are always going to be unforeseen things that come up. We could have spring floods and all sorts of stuff that could happen. Do we need to wait until and have it come effective January 1 next year? When we adopt the new budget. So that's.
I would be more comfortable with having a date that's farther down the road. I mean, being effective with the next election, perhaps, or maybe January 1st next year. I think what it's going to do is give us a huge field of people running for mayor, and we are going to run. We might have something like a 10 or 15-way race, and we might have somebody. We might be surprised who finally gets elected, because we're diluting the voter pool. We only have 1,000 votes in this town or something like that. So there are things that need to be discussed about this. But on the other hand, I would like to see the mayor's salary kind of commensurate with the other department heads, so that it compares with them if we're going to raise salaries around here. And I don't know in my own mind whether I think the mayor should be making more than the other department heads or less or what. I don't have any opinion of that at this point. So I'm not ready to go with something that's going to be ready March the 1st, no. I need time to think about this.
Mr. Mitchell.
So can I amend that motion or withdraw
Sure,
it and
most
start a
please.
new one? I withdraw it. You draw your second.
Withdraw. Second.
I make a new motion.
Okay.
We ask the city attorney to draft an ordinance effective January 1, 2013. 14, thank you. 2014. Backdate it. 2014 to raise the mayor's salary to $36,000.
Second.
Any further discussion on it? Okay, let's see. Mr. McClung, you got yours up first.
I was on council when it was raised from 68 to 18, and I wasn't for it then. I'm not for it now. It's a position that the mayor goes into knowing full aware what he's up against when he or she throws her name in the hat. This town, it depends a lot on volunteerism, and that's part of the deal, just like sitting at this table is part of that deal. And it's just the way it is in my mind. Not for it. No offense.
None taken?
I didn't think there would be.
Ms. Schneider.
That's it.
I'm all for the mayor getting a raise, so to speak. Mayors of Eureka tend to really kind of earn it. I don't want to see us be in any kind of a rush. I would like to see further discussions with the finance director, with just us at the table, what it entails, and I would really, really like to have some kind of a full-time versus part-time delineage if we could. I've lived here too long. I have seen mayors that did 10 hours or less a week. And that concerns me. That really concerns me. I would just like to have that be one of the things that you look into, see how we could handle whatever. That concerns me a lot. Other than that, no, the mayors in this town definitely need a raise.
Mr. Mitchell.
With all due respect to Mr. McClung, I just do not see that the mayor's position is a voluntary position. And with respect to Ms. Zeller, I do not see that the executive of the city deserves to earn less than a department director, not when the executive is over the department directors. That is just absolutely contrary to everything in the business world, in anything that's out there. You don't compensate the executive of a city or a company less than the department heads earn.
Mr. McClung.
If you're going to make it a job, turn it into a job. You change the form of government, hire a city administrator, and pay somebody that you have that kind of control over. Otherwise, leave it alone.
Mr. DeVito.
Well, I've tried hard to do that, but I couldn't get the 50 votes the last election to make it happen. With all due respect to the mayor
Appreciate it. Again.
and all of the people here at council, the only qualification we have to have is to be able to win an election. That's not necessarily so with the transit director, with the public works director, or with any of our other department heads. They have to have qualifications. The only qualification you need to be mayor of Eureka Springs is to win the election.
That's supposed to make us feel better?
Mr. Purkeypile.
Does that hold true for all elected positions?
Not the city attorneys.
Okay. What about city clerk?
Win an election.
Okay. Paid full-time salary.
Correct.
Expected to be here as a full-time job.
Not necessarily. That's your interpretation. I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
Schneider.
Can we change the wording for requirements?
For mayor,
Uh-huh.
state statute sets
Okay,
qualifications.
Right.
Okay, that's what I was,
And
I
you don't
figured that, but
And if you tell the mayor he's got to work 38 hours a week or else, you have nowhere else. You have no stick to beat him over
so
the head.
we can't add, like, however it is if the state statute reads, we can't, like, add this pertains to 30-plus hours a week.
No.
Okay. I didn't think so, but it's worth asking.
Purkeypile.
What is that state statute that you just quoted? Or
I'd have to
get it
get you
ready.
a number.
It is. This is one of the things they do as mayor. Find this.
Oh,
Hang on. It would be
Yeah.
1443-504.
That's cities of the first class?
I'm sorry.
Cities of the first class?
Yes, ma'am.
1443 who?
1443-504. Powers and duties of mayor generally.
Is that a
the only
chapter
thing
or
that
something?
can happen if a mayor falls down on their job is the same as removal statutes that would allow for removal of a council member if they fall down on their job. There are state statutes if you have a mayor that absolutely refuses to do their job.
Mr. DeVito.
I would move that we table this to our next meeting so that we can get a little more input and a little more information.
Second.
Wasn't there a motion that we need to
There's
withdraw?
a motion and a second on
Well,
it.
it can wait till the next meeting, can it?
Can I withdraw it? And then you can go to your motion?
You can withdraw it.
I'll withdraw that motion so we can move to that one.
Well, you don't have to, because my motion would supersede yours, so it could be just waiting for us when we get back next meeting.
That must be.
So is your motion back on?
No, sir, I'm still
Okay.
going to withdraw it and
Okay.
clean it up.
Okay. I believe you had a second on that
Yeah,
one.
you
So
got to get rid of the second.
whoever seconded.
Did I second? I withdraw my second.
Okay. So the new motion is what? Clear for the record.
Table till the next meeting.
Table to the next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Postpone. That will take us out of new business into agenda setting.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
I wondered, is this resolution that we got here about seeking this grant, is this time sensitive? Do we have to pass this in a certain length of
We
time?
did.
This
we
will
did.
be on the,
But should we be doing this now or tonight or?
Why did we get it is the question.
It's passed.
It passed. It gave them the right to
Oh, we did.
Yes,
we
submit
did.
the application.
We did.
It's a resolution.
Oh, that happened tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Okay, I'll be all right in the
Seems
morning.
like a week ago, doesn't it?
Agenda setting.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that. I just didn't make the
Sad.
Need a
note.
motion to discuss agenda setting?
Oh, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I've got 4 I need to add for next council meeting. It'll be state of the city address. Need to add the safe route to school grant discussion. Need to add the electronic funds transfer ordinance for the cemetery. And then the parks tax ordinance. We need to take care of that issue. And whatever council wants to add to it, Schneider.
I would like to add a wrap-up discussion of the urban deer hunt.
Anybody else?
We need a second.
Second.
We need some cheesecloth for that.
No, it's, the end of the month is
Yeah.
the end of the hunt, and I just wanted to do a wrap-up discussion on that. I'd also have a real short, quick, easy little protocol discussion.
Protocol?
On one little item.
Second.
Protocol.
Thank you. At the table, protocol at the table, I'm sorry.
Okay. Anybody else? If no further, all in favor of the amendment? See, actually, we don't even need to do that, do we? Okay. Next will be up is council comments. Mr. DeVito.
My first meeting back with the new council. I'm just tickled to death, and we seem to be moving along swiftly and efficiently, and hopefully you can keep that course for the rest of the year.
Great to have you here, James. Just
Mr.
let-
McClung.
Nothing.
Mr. Mitchell?
Just a repeat of what we said the last time, the civility at this table has increased the productivity dramatically.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Purkeypile.
I'd like to thank council and department heads for coming out to Black Bass Lake Dam to take a look at an issue that has kind of languished for many years, and I think everybody, all the council agrees that it's something that we need to address. It's just a matter of having the political will and the political funds, or the funds to do something with that particular structure.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schneider.
Happy birthday, Cadence. My 13th grandchild turned 1 year old on Super Bowl Sunday. So guess whose birthday party got postponed until the next week? Happy birthday, Cadence. That's it.
Ms. Zeller.
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay.
I don't have any comments.
Let me just hit you with a couple of events here. On February the 12th, the old school building town meeting will be at 1:30 in the Ozarks Convention Center to discuss what the public views on the old high school building should be used for. On February the 18th, city offices will be closed due to observance of President's Day. One comment I have is for the council is tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. That's correct. There will be a walkthrough for city officials of the old school building if anybody wants to attend. So they're going to let us look at it. At 9 o'clock in the morning.
At the old school.
At the old school. And then at the old school in the parking lot. Okay, thank you. And right now I think that's all I've got for the time being. I may have some later on for next. Yes, ma'am. 9 o'clock. Oh, our finance director, Lonnie Clark's wife, passed away last Friday evening, unexpectedly. Tomorrow we'll be viewing at Nelson's in Berryville, and then Wednesday will be the memorial service. So if anybody would like to attend that, I'd be more than welcome to, and he would appreciate it.
Do you have hours?
We can find out the hours. Do you know what they are? Because
Wednesday, tomorrow is 5 to 7 at Nelson's in Berryville. Wednesday is 11 at Towering Oaks Church.
Towering Oaks Church, yeah. Everybody knows where Towering Oaks is, on 62 between here and Berryville. Okay. That's all I have. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.